And so we're going to continue with that tradition today. And today's reading, and we asked a representative from each family to do a reading, part of the reading. But on August the 20th, 2019, we will be recognizing the 400th years of the 400th anniversary of the first slaves to arrive in America. They arrived in America in Virginia, and they arrived in a town called Comfort, Virginia. And the word is ironic because they arrived in this town called Comfort, where the name came from the folks who had come from Britain, who said, we're trying to find some place that's comfortable to us. And it's ironic that these slaves, or these black people, arrived and they became slaves in America. And so what we're going to do today is recognize the fact that not only have we had, we're all descendants of those people who came here 400 years ago, but we also happen to be descendants of the people who 246 years later made the decision, my families have been wrecked, my families have been ruined, but one thing we know about black people is black people love their families. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to actually read some of the ads that were placed by black people once emancipation occurred in 1863, looking for their loved ones, looking for their daughters, looking for their fathers, looking for their mothers, looking for their grandmothers. And so with that, we're going to start with John.
On or about August 20th, 1619, 20 and odd Negroes arrived in Virginia on the White Lion, a Dutch man of war ship carrying enslaved cargo from the west coast of Africa. What followed was more than 2 centuries of brutal enslavement. By the time the Civil War began in 1860, census figures showed the slave population in the United States was nearly 4 million.
So we went from 20 blacks to 4 million people, and then in 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation was signed. Blacks were free, and immediately after blacks were free, they immediately started looking for their families. Dawn.
In an ad placed June 28, 1883, in the Southwestern Christian Advocate newspaper in New Orleans, Betty Davis explained that she was separated from her mother when she was 3 years old. I am now 55 years of age. I learned how to read when I was 50. I am anxious and would be glad to hear something of my mother or my brother Henry. Someone help me.
Dear editor, I was the last one sold out of 9 in 1860. My mother and 8 children were sold in Clarksville, Tennessee to Clark Cummings, a speculator. Mother was sold to Thomas Hughes near Clarksville. The youngest one, Evelyn, is dead. The next Major was sold the same day I was. I can't tell you where he's taken to. I heard he went to Alabama. I was sold to a man in Mississippi named James Pollard, and he caused me to be run to Texas. I heard that mother and 5 children were living in Logan County, Kentucky. The boys are Lewis, Charles, and Moses. Girls, Louisa Ann and Shrildar. Mother's name was Letty. Address me at Paris, Texas. Rufus Rollins.
Dear editor, I wish to inquire about my relatives. I was born in Virginia, but am unable to name the county. But I remember that it was 12 miles from Dayville. My master was James Farrell and mistress Martha Farrell. I was sold to Farrell's brother, William Farrell, a speculator, and was brought to Mobile at the age of 10 years old. To my recollection, my father's name was Joseph, my mother was Millie, my brother was Anthony, and my sister Maria. We belonged to James Farrell, except one sister, Julia, and I don't know who she belonged to. My name was Annie Farrell, but my owner changed to Caroline Rhodes. Direct your letters to 185 Sopera Street, New Orleans, Louisiana.
Okay. Mr. Editor, I desire some information about my mother. The last time I saw her, I was in Alexandria, Virginia, about the year 1852 or 1853. Her name was Hannah. She belonged to Lawyer Tibbs, who sold her when I was quite young to a trader named Ruthings. Lather Tibbs, who lived at Leesburg, Virginia, when he sold my mother to Brookings, and afterwards Tibbs moved to Alexandria, Virginia, and swapped me to Brookings for another boy. The Brookings put me in jail, and I cried, so he told me if I hushed, he would introduce me to my mother in the morning, which he did. But I was so young, mother hardly knew me. So Brookings stood 4 or 5 boys in a line and asked her which one of them was her boy. She stood a few moments and then said I was the boy. Mother then brought me some cake and candy, and that was the last time I saw her. I now go by the name of Henry Tibbs. I remember the names of 2 of Tibbs' sons, Abner and Kennedy. Brookings brought me to New Orleans, Louisiana, and sold me to a man named M. Pickett. If mother is found, please address me at Deasonville, Yazoo County, Mississippi, in care of Reverend James Allen. Henry Tibbs.
Dear Editor, I wish to inquire for my husband, George Washington Stepton. He belonged to Dr. McFarland of New Orleans. When we were separated about 34 years ago, we had a daughter, Mary E. Stepton, who is now with me. Any information of him will be thankfully received. Address me at Pittsfield, Texas, in care of Reverend A.C. Coleman, Gracie Stepton.
Ariel?
Dear Editor, I wish to inquire for my 3 children. Melinda Barnett, the first one, left me about 40 years ago, was bought by speculators in Charlotte, North Carolina, and carried to Columbus, Alabama. Mary Slaughter was carried from Canton to New Orleans. She belonged to Louis Slaughter, who sold her in New Orleans, where he kept a tavern. Daughter Ellen used to belong to Bill Smith, and he sold her to William Buckles, who carried her to Texas. When she left me about 20 years ago, she had 1 child. They both went from Marion Co., Mississippi. When Molly was sold, he went by the name of Malindsay Dickens. Address me at Canton, Mississippi, in care of W.B. Ricks. My name was Eliza Dancy when the children went away, but now it is Eliza Handy.
My mother was sold from me when I could but crawl. Since the sale, I never saw any of my people. I was about 39 years old last March and am married and living at Panama, Vernon County, Missouri. My name is Mary Delaney. It used to be Mary Long. Address me at Post Office, Panama, Vernon County, Missouri.
Ms. Barber?
There were only a few instances of successful reunions coming from the placement of a newspaper ad. Every once in a while, however, it worked. The Christian Advocate wrote about one such result in 1877. We published it in this column, a letter from Charity Thompson of Hawkins, Texas. The letter was read in the First Church, Houston, and as the reading proceeded, a well-known member of the church broke into tears and cried out, "That is my sister, and I have not seen her for 33 years. The mother is still living, and in a few days, the happy family will be once more reunited."
Thank you very much. I just close with one word, and that is reparations. Enjoy, and thank you all for coming, okay? Bye-bye. Let's go. We can just...